Tiger! What's up, everybody? It is your boy BigDonSkillz, and I got a special guest with me here today, the one and only, the legendary Joya herself. What's going on with you?
Hey, everyone.
All right, so at the popular demand, there has been a huge request for a review of the Soul movie. I posted a status on Twitter about last week mentioning how I actually didn't like the movie, and I found it to be very, very disappointing and underwhelming. So Joya here watched it with me. I think we both just kind of wanted to talk about, honestly, why we didn't like the movie, the goods, the bads, and the uglies of it. So we'll start off with Joya. I know she has some things to say. What was something that you wanted to kind of bring up first about the movie itself?
Like, there's some small movies that when you're watching them, like, they're great into the last 5 minutes. This was not one of those movies. It would have a very slow character development, and it spent so much time focusing on one thing, and it wasn't even a relevant thing, that it kind of just missed the bullseye altogether.
Right. I think it's an example of one of those movies that makes you think it's one thing going into it, and when you watch it, it's not remarkably close to what you expected. The main focus of the movie, from my understanding, would have been the main character, which is played by Jamie Foxx. He's pretty much just been this school teacher, this music teacher his whole life, and he finally has an opportunity to play for a local band that, may be his ticket out, his way to becoming famous finally. And I feel like the movie just kind of introduced that, and then it just took this like mega detour over into a totally different movie and environment. So what do you think about that?
I think, like, after that, I agree. The beginning of it was like, okay, this is going to be like a decent movie. I'm going to enjoy this. And then going into the spirit world and everything, and then where he ended up meeting, I can't remember, Ghost 22 or whatever. And it goes to be like, oh, trying to find your spark. So he's trying to find the spark or the passion. And it's like, okay, I'll be okay if it's actually like a movie about like finding out what you're passionate about and what you want to do with your life. And understanding who you are and coming to age. And it kind of touched a little bit on like, don't make your passion an obsession because you could lose reality. Just briefly, but
it didn't get to that point though until towards the end of the movie.
No,
and it kind of briefly touched over that point.
Well, they went there first, or before they went back to Earth, before they're getting on the boat, they touched on it a little bit. It's like, how like are these people, these wanderers, this way? They're like, oh, they get so obsessed in trying to do something perfectly, and it's just like, that's a good point that I feel like the older audience will understand, like being obsessed about something that you kind of lose your reality for a little bit. But even then, it was maybe a one sentence line in the movie, and not brought up again into like the almost towards the end.
Right. So,
and it just fell for me.
Right. I think the main thing is that the movie had no direction. It wanted you to, have some sort of connection with Jamie Foxx's character, which I think it initially did a good job of. But you see, as the movie goes on, it just kind of loses himself. It wants to focus on the relationship between him and Ghost of 22. It also wants to try and explain and show that there's some sort of musical aspect to it. But there's really no music. There's no set piece. Nothing going on whenever he's in this ghost world. And I think the movie also does a terrible way of transitioning him into this ghost world. I mean, he literally hits the climax of the movie where he's excited. He's finally got an opportunity to play for his dream band. And literally in 2 seconds, he dies. And it was so confusing to me that I was just kind of like, well, what happened? Like, did I skip a part of the movie? Did I fast forward to it? It also brings another point. I know this is something we talked about before, And this seems to be a common issue with movies that have a primarily black cast or a black character, to where it kind of teases you with these really cool themes and aesthetics. For example, with this movie, a lot of people were really excited about that barbershop scene and how they designed the characters, which is something I will give them props for. But you realize that's such a tiny part of the movie, and that exactly, and that he spends most of his time not even being himself. Whether it's a spirit in the spirit world, or a cat, or having a woman as him talk as a woman's voice, and you lose complete connection to the character. I just think they did a really goofy job with that, and I think the second that, you know, Tina Fey's voice was talking in his body, it completely like threw me out the loop for the movie. It just took away any sort of like connection that I had previously established with the character. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It was all over the place. It didn't have a clear and concise plot, and it didn't take advantage of the relationship that it was building up for. It just ended out of nowhere. And when we watched the movie, the runtime was 1 hour and 49 minutes. And the credits literally came up at 1 hour and 29 minutes. So the movie wasn't even the standard 1 hour and 30 minute that most movies are, you know, have been at, honestly. And it was short-lived, and low effort as well. Was there anything you wanted to, you know, talk about in addition to that?
Like, I agree with the whole Tina Fey having that voice. Like, even though the rest of the people in the movie might not hear the voice, but having it play for the audience, it's something that was lost. It changed the meaning of the movie. Mm-hmm. And they could have done something so great with this movie. Mm-hmm. And when you name something Soul, and it's supposed to be about a black movie, a lot of black people associate soul music with jazz. The scatting was great. Even the barbershop scene was good. Mm-hmm. But it makes you think that this movie was not named Soul because of the meaning it has with the black culture.
So double meaning.
It was pretty much only did this like, oh, because they didn't want to name it Spirit.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of what it was. It was a spirit movie that they just happened to name Soul.
Yeah, it just, I don't know.
And I did not like the Jerrys or the Terrys.
Yeah, they were pretty garbage. That was the laziest part of the movie. I mentioned this to you before. The movie's actually gorgeous. It looks great, visually appealing. You know, we were able to watch it in 4K on Disney Plus, so visually it's gorgeous. But the Jerry and Terry, easily the laziest character design I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm gonna have to have it play. But it was so bad. They were literally lines. It was just a line. They were just lines with like a glowy neon effect. I can do that I can do that in a video editing app. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was so lazy, and it just kind of showed you that the movie there's definitely points where the movie's budget just kind of like, yeah, they didn't really put much effort into this part. But then there's some great details, like I say, when you're in the barbershop and you see like the Muhammad Ali and Frazier fight, you see little things like that are like nice little tributes. And then a scene later, you know, he's not even talking in his own body, and essentially 22 becomes a better version of himself. It's just very weird and off-putting. This is all over the place. I will give one thing. I think one of the better scenes I think they did pretty well on was the argument he had with his mother, because you saw like his actual side come through the character. It was almost like as if he took over his body again. I thought that was like pretty good, but it just kind of, that scene happened, and then it was just like, that's it.
I have to disagree. I was not, like, I was thinking about that. I was not a fan of that, because it's like, this guy's in his 30s, 40s, 50s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you would think by now he would have made some assertive dominance saying, hey, this is what I'm passionate about. I know that you don't agree with it because of my dad, which is a trope that has been played so many times.
Okay.
With, it was in this holiday, oh, you can't be a musician because your dad was a failed musician, or
Fair enough. Okay.
And we just keep hearing this argument so much, but it's just like,
it's played out by now, is what you're saying.
he's played out, but it's like, this is a grown man that probably should have had his own family by now.
Right.
Looking at his appearance, it looks like he's in his 40s, early 50s.
Yeah, he's not a young guy.
He's not a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to still have to justify something this long, it's kind of ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Because at this point, like, his life is pretty much done.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you think about it, it's like, he should be...
He was kind of the loser, like, he's the loser guy, you know, who's trying to make it big. But he's never given up on his dreams.
Like,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, once again, the inconsistency of the theme. There's no consistency of the movie. I agree with what you're saying. I did like that scene, but I completely get where you're coming from. It's just, there's no consistency. And that's the biggest problem with Soul. I know a lot of people liked it, but I think, you know, when it comes to movies like this, especially black movies, there's going to be a different critique coming from black people as well,
mm-hmm.
you know, especially black people that aren't just easy to be excited as soon as they see a movie with black characters in it. And I think this was one of those examples of, it had me hooked in at first. I was really excited. Donnell Rawlins, aka Ashley Larry, plays the barber. It's just really some interesting stuff, but Jamie Foxx, you know, being main character, cool, but it just wasn't there, man. It
fell so short.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Soul has to be. Did we watch that here in 2021?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it has to be the first Gulag movie of 2021, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that about summarizes everything up. Was there anything else you had to say, Joya?
I think that was about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, the hype around this movie was so like, oh, you guys were getting this, it's gonna be great.
It's artificial.
Especially since, like, everything that happened last year, it's like, okay, we need to have a good influence to see.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of just like, you were left short and having more questions than you would if you didn't watch the movie.
Agreed. But yeah, well said. And I know this is the most exciting review. Like, this isn't us praising it, but yeah, it just wasn't there for us. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed. Just wanted to do this real quick. Hopefully this isn't running too long. But I appreciate y'all for being here. We're going to do a review here soon of WandaVision episode 1 and 2. Just watched that last night too. So we're going to do a review while that's fresh in our mind. But yeah, I appreciate y'all for coming by. Joya, thank you for joining me on this festivity. Y'all have a good rest of your night and peace out.